What is up, Wrestle Geeks? It is Big Mike here with a special edition of the Countdown City Wrestlecast again. I am piloting the solo today because we have another special guest joining us. He is one of the top talents here in Texas and soon making his way around the rest of the United States. He is the current MPW Cup champion. He is one half of both the RCW and Hybrid Tag Team champions. He is the PWE North American champion. He is the Broken Brawler. He is the breaker of backs. He is Casey Blackrose. Casey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And that's one hell of an intro, honestly, man.
You know, you've got some accomplishments right off the bat here as I'm looking through all the things you've already done. So we'll get to all the current stuff here in a minute. But with these interviews, I like to kind of start back from the beginning. So if you wouldn't mind, just kind of talk to us about, where you grew up and when wrestling kind of first comes into your life.
Oh, man, I'm born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. I lived in San Antonio my whole life. Um, Man, since I can remember, 3, 4 years old, just loving wrestling. My mom she tells me stories when I was 3 years old. I heard my father took me to a Friday night or Thursday night SmackDown in like 2001.
Yeah.
So it's always been something that's been in my life growing up. Um, yeah, man, I remember being like 4 years old and buying a Kurt Angle action figure, the first ever action figure that he dropped, and it's always been a love and a passion of mine. Um, yeah, wrestling. It's been it's crazy, crazy ride. Wrestling is, it
Yeah,
saved my life. Tell
I'm
you
right
that.
there with you, man. Since a little kid myself, you said the first action figure you bought, Kurt Angle. Who were the first kind of ones that you really remember besides Kurt Angle that you really got into and were big fans of in those days?
Growing up, the guys who like stood out to me right away were Kane. Because I remember growing up, I'd say I'd start remembering things in like 2003, 2004.
Yeah,
So growing up, it was Kane, Rob Van Dam, Eddie Guerrero, Shawn Michaels, JBL, The Undertaker, the Ruthless Aggression guys.
yeah,
Um, but the ones I pretty gravitated towards more was Shawn Michaels and Eddie Guerrero. Two guys from Texas
yeah,
who aren't the biggest of guys, but they would go out there and it doesn't matter if they're bigger or smaller than them, they're gonna fight and they're gonna give their all. And just the love and passion that they brought into that ring really clicked with me growing up as a kid. Being from Texas, I saw those two as like superheroes, real life superheroes.
yeah, and legitimately two of the best that have ever done this, without a doubt. So wrestling's always been a part of your life. When do you first get the thought or the idea to even start training for it, or if it's something you actually could do with your life?
And growing up, I would always, tell my parents, I'm gonna be a wrestler. I want to be a wrestler, And growing up, it was a dream. It was a just something I said out loud. And when I was about 9 years old, my father passed away, and he was me and him are what we bonded over was wrestling.
Right.
He bought me action figures and magazines, air fresheners. I'd collect DVDs and just everything wrestling. We
Right.
would bond over. He took me to my first show that I remember, SmackDown in 2005. I got to see Eddie Guerrero 2 weeks before he passed away,
Oh wow.
and those are just memories that are gonna live with me for the rest of my life. And when my father passed away, wrestling, it it was my escape. I'd turn on Raw or SmackDown, and
Yeah.
then for those 2 hours, I would just be all in, and I would get away from everything that was going on around me. And growing up, I fell off. I would say, like high school wise, for those 3 or 4 years because
Yeah.
it was always not frowned upon, but it was always, how people are. Oh, that's fake, or you watch that.
Right.
after I graduated, I was trying to figure out life. I went to college for like 2 semesters. I was at that time I was like still in love with wrestling, and I told myself like maybe I can major in broadcast journalism and be an analyst or be something with wrestling, and that didn't plan out. And I went to RCW show in 2019. Um, and I just remember seeing because I would go to RCW shows growing up back in
Yeah.
2007, 2008. Like I would watch Chris Marvel and Don Juan and
Yeah.
all these guys who helped pretty much mold me to who I am today. But I went to RCW show and I remember seeing guys who who weren't big, who were kind of like my size and doing these things. And I just remember messaging the RCW account on Instagram, like, "Hey man,
Wow.
like, do you know any schools or how do I get my foot into the door with professional wrestling? Like, I've been a fan, I've been a fan of RCW for years." And they wrote me back like an hour later, just saying Hybrid School of Wrestling in San Antonio, Texas, Chris Marvel. And I was like, Chris Marvel, like, I know
From
that
what
name.
yeah.
I had no idea that he ran a school. And I contacted the school. This was July of 2019. I contacted the school, and 3 minutes later, they responded, "Yeah, come in for a tour. See, let's check it out." And I hopped because at this time I didn't have a car. I
Yeah.
hopped on the bus. It was like a 40-minute bus ride. I was like, "Man, this ain't shit." Like language, but I was like, "Man, this ain't nothing. Like I can do this. Like whatever. Like let me go sign up." I was already telling myself like I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. I get there. I get there like 30 minutes before like train like he told me to go. So there, I think it was might have been Brandon Weiss. He was just like, "Oh, like wait around in the lobby. Chris Marvel would be here
Mm,
around 7." I was all right. When I walked in those doors, the first thing I saw was a framed tights of Eddie Guerrero that were autographed,
mm.
and I believe they were the last tights he ever wore. And you've been to the school to
Yes.
see some of our shows, and I'm sure you've seen those tights.
Yeah.
And that like it was a like as soon as I opened the door, it was just eye contact, and it kind of like it was one of those not weird moments, but one of those moments that was like, wow, like that's a piece of history.
Hmm.
And I look to the left and I see the Jeff Jarrett guitar, and I see just all the stuff on the wall of people who's
Yeah.
been to the school, who's held seminars, and I was like, wow, like this is insane. And then at that time, the some of the trainers were different, so I was there sitting down, and then I see Rodney Mack and Jazz walk by me, and I was
Right.
like, oh wow, like I that's crazy. Like
Hmm.
I've seen them wrestle before, and then Funaki, Funaki walks in, and I was like,
Right.
whoa, like what the hell? Like I had no idea these guys were the trainers, and then Marvel walks in, and then we meet, we talk, I tell him my story,
Hmm.
about why I want to wrestle and why I want to do this, and I signed the papers. This was July of 2019, and man, these last almost 4 years just been a crazy ride. Like
Yeah.
like signing those papers were the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Right.
And it's insane just the growth that I've been able to go through being in those doors and being in that school. And I mean, I credit, it's crazy because now I'm holding an RCW championship and I've been featured on RCW for the last year and a half, almost 2 years. And
Yeah.
just the fact that I don't even know if like Brandon Oliver remembers me messaging him or not, but the fact that he helped get my foot into the door in wrestling is just, it's a crazy story. It all
Right.
circles back to each other.
Yeah. And funny when you talk about that, there's a good chance that me and the host of the show, JC, because we've known each other from since high school, there's a good chance us and our friends were there at some of those same RCW shows you were going to when you were a little kid, and Tommy too. So I don't know if you remember him or you would have noticed him, but Tommy was probably at a bunch of those shows too, doing the same thing he's doing nowadays, which is harassing all of y'all and trying to prevent y'all from getting your matches started.
Yeah.
Um,
I think one of like the RCW shows I can remember growing up, it was like Hernandez versus Fast Eddie, and he like
mhm,
freaking border tossed Fast Eddie into the brick wall, and I was just like, what? I was like 9 years old, like what the hell? Like I want to
yeah.
do this.
Yeah, we were going to those RCW shows back in 2007, 2008, 2009. Hernandez, Homicide would show up sometimes. Yeah, those are some great shows. RCW, really has been a staple in San Antonio. Um, so you talk about you get to hybrid, you fall in love, you sign the papers immediately. What was the first actual practice you went through? What was that experience like for you?
Man, believe it or not, it was like the worst day of my life. I walked. So when I first joined hybrid, I was about 240. You know, like
Hmm.
overweight. I was big. I had a blonde man bun. I was like just out of shape. It was ridiculous. My first day, uh, the strength and conditioning coach who used to be there, his name's Coach Mark. He was
Hmm.
like, "Hey Brandon, like it's his first day. Like guide him through." Like I kid you not, doing bicep one set of bicep curls. I started like it was hot in that building.
Yeah.
I started throwing up doing bicep curls. I went outside. I think I threw up. I still hold the record for sure, but I threw up like 13 or 14 times on my first day.
Jesus. Yeah.
Just I couldn't even make it outside on one of them, so I had to borrow someone's shirt. It was just a mess, man. This is
Yeah.
insane. And like I went home and it was one of those gut check feelings, like damn, like I went home and I was like, fuck, do I really want to do this? And I was like, no, like you have to, like
Yeah.
you came here, like it's not gonna be as bad as what it was today. So I went in there, man, like so I started like July 9th, 2019.
Hmm.
And by like late August, early September, I had dropped like 35, 40 pounds.
Wow.
I was in way better shape than what I was. I was just moving ranks by the time, because it takes time for like this is hard to learn.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like I did cardio for 9 weeks before I even stepped foot inside of a ring.
Oh wow.
So that's and I was doing cardio by myself.
Hmm.
That sucks because you're watching everybody take bumps and have matches and do moves, and it motivates the hell out of you to do what you got to do so you can get in that ring. And when I got into the ring, it was something I just picked up right away.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to say right away because there's things that you're always learning every day. You're always learning how to do things, but it was something that like the basics kind of came like a little faster than normal because I've always been a fan. I see how people do things, how they
Right.
just it is, and by I would say like by like September, October, like I started just getting I guess rewarded for the hard work that I was doing, and
Yeah.
like within 3 months I don't know if you remember, but I was a referee for RCW.
I probably would have seen you, and it wouldn't even have clicked until it comes back.
Like 2019, 2020. Like I don't know if you remember the Young Gun shows at the hybrid school or
We went to one because there's kind of an infamous one. Was Richie still there when you were?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so JC has a son. In fact, the son whose birthday is today as we're recording this. But he was like 2 or 3, and we were at one of those shows, and Richie's talking trash, and out of nowhere, his son just goes, "Oh yeah, what about that?" We were like, and so after the show, we're talking because JC, Tommy, like they know everybody. Um, I, Oddly, before for the longest time, I was like more the quiet one who didn't talk to most people. But JC goes and he's talking to them, and he's talking to Richie, and he gets his son to be like, "Yeah, I'm going to come and challenge you for the belt." So we used to always joke with Richie. I know he's not with the wrestling with hybrid and stuff anymore. But we used to always joke that. So we probably were at one of those shows where we were a referee.
Yeah,
We
I
we just didn't
remember
realize it.
the ones at the school. It was like him and Vice versus the Pillars of Destiny.
Yeah,
And
it might have been. There were some. There, I think we went to at least 2 of them. Those were some great shows.
yeah, I refed like I did their Billy Madison like anniversary when they worked with Fozzy. I refed that whole show.
Yeah,
It's just like getting better in the ring and getting these opportunities, and it was just happening so fast. And then the pandemic happened,
right.
and it took a whole year away from wrestling. And I feel like if that didn't happen, I would have debuted in 2020. But the way it all worked, it took a year away from
Yeah.
everything, and I ended up having my first match in January of 2021. And
Okay.
I'm only like a year, maybe a month over 2 month 2 years.
Right.
I've done so much in so little time, and it's just crazy to even look back at the person I was 4 years ago to who I am now, and I would never imagine my life being like this. Wrestling some guys I grew up idolizing. I wrestled Tom Latimer. I used to watch him when he was in Impact as Bram. I
Right.
wrestled Chase Owens at the Bullet Club. I've worked with Rob Van Dam, Jimmy Wang Yang,
Wow.
just like crazy guys. I worked Davey Richards, and it's just insane the stuff that I've been able to do in the last 2 years. And
Yeah.
in
So,
Texas,
oh, sorry.
it's
Go ahead.
yeah, in Texas it's so hard to make a name for yourself because this is such a big state for wrestling.
Hmm.
And I feel like I've done a pretty good job in the 2 years that I've been here.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And your name's starting to get out there. If you don't mind me asking, just coming off some of those names, what's it like going into that locker room, the new place or whatever, or when those vets come in? I mean, you don't have to go into too much detail of the locker room, but like, what's it like to see them? And you assume you go pay your respects, but also then to kind of be like, I'm one of them too now. I'm a wrestler like these guys now. What's that like for you?
It's sometimes it still doesn't like hit me.
Yeah.
The other day, the night I won the PW North American Championship, I was back there with Kurt Angle, and I had a conversation with Kurt Angle, and I even told him the story. I was like, "Sir, like you were the first action figure that I bought." I was like long sleeve gray hoodie with, and I didn't even know it was the first one, but he was like, "That was the first action figure that ever dropped of WWE," and he was like, "That's crazy that you remember that."
Yeah.
And he was such a big inspiration to me, Kurt Angle, just the way he carried himself and his work ethic, and being around these guys, it's insane because I I, I try to pick so many brains as I can,
Yeah.
and a lot of the guys that I've been able to, fortunately, that I've been able to interact with you know, have given me great information and knowledge and tools to help better who I am, and it's insane being considered, one of them. But now
Yeah.
that I look at it and I've seen what I've done and who I've been in the ring with and being able to hold my own against these guys, like I'm meant to be with these guys.
Yeah.
I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to be doing this, and it's humbling. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, I know because these are the shows I've been to the most of the recent year. You've got a pretty good streak going at MPW. You won the MPW Cup. You defended it. Uh, so I don't know if is that something that gets defended, or did you just win it and you're the champ? It's hard to tell sometimes as the fans when they kind of
Yeah,
introduce the match. I don't know if you even know for sure the way it
I
rolls.
know. I know when I wrestled Devin Carter in a singles match, it was for the cup.
Right.
I know when I wrestled Diego Rene last
Yeah.
month, it was for the cup. So I'm guessing,
but
I'm guessing all the matches I wrestle were for the cup. And
yeah.
I
But
don't,
it
I don't. Go ahead.
I'll say I guess it doesn't matter though because you're not going to give them a chance to win it. So
That's what I'm saying. I've won 6 matches in a row at Mission Pro Wrestling.
yeah,
I've, there's other people in Mission Pro Wrestling. They like to call themselves a man of Mission Pro. But come on now.
I know what you're saying. We've talked about that after the men's revolution, and I've seen this comment on some of the social medias when a certain group calls himself the men's revolution, and we said, well, there's a man who's got an actual title there who's winning, and that's you right now. So
You know,
uh,
like the men who call themselves the Man Revolution. I'm everywhere they are,
yeah,
and everywhere I'm at, I have gold, and they don't. So who's really the men's revolution here?
I agree with you, and also let me say at that last hybrid show, you and JP Harlow, to steal a phrase from Sheamus, put on a banger to open that show. Obviously, Harlow had to win by some nefarious means. We saw what happened, but yeah, no. In all honesty, that was a great match. Hell of a way to kick off the show, and I think the crowd really uh, fed off the energy of you two guys in that one.
Yeah, man. Believe it or not, that's the first time me and JPR have ever wrestled in a singles match.
Yeah,
And just the story that we're telling with the Flocking Brawlers and H2 Easy, it's one of those matches that it's not going to be, traditional wrestling. It's not going to be like holds and then lockups and stuff like that. Like, no, we went there to fight.
yeah,
And that match started off strong. We were fighting. And one thing about me, and same thing with JP, we're both hard hitting. We're
yeah.
both guys who, we love to go out there and we love to make it a point to have the match of the night. And putting two guys together like that, it's, putting us first was the best thing that you could have done.
Yeah, it was. It was great.
And yeah, JP Harlow, he's a thorn on my side. These last few months, him and Joey Hyder annoy the hell out of me. But I'll give them their props. H2 Easy's making waves themselves in
Yeah,
Texas, and it's all goes back to hybrid. We're all hybrid guys. We're all
yeah,
making it for ourselves, but at the end of the day, there can only be one. There can
yeah.
only be one man of Mission Pro. There can only be one man of hybrid. Me and Brandon are equal.
Of course, of
But,
course.
as regards to JP, there can only be one.
I got you there. Yeah, no, I understand. Um, Speaking of Brandon, where or how did the Flock and Brawlers get started? Because obviously a great tag team, winning gold right off the bat. But how long have y'all kind of been together with that?
Man, like I said, if there's anyone who helped me so much in wrestling, it's Brandon Weiss.
Yeah,
Like I said, he was there on my first day. I joined Hybrid, and he's there now. If there's anyone who believed in me and pushed me to that next level, and I wanted to kick someone's ass so much, but I haven't because of the respect I have for them, it's Brandon Weiss. He's helped me so much, and he's, like when I was coming up, I would see him with Richie,
yeah,
the Road Taxation. They were a great tag team. Brandon's a great tag team wrestler.
yeah,
And in RCW, we're both just not getting shown the respect that we deserve. And I think the first taste that I got to see what I can do with Brandon might have been RCW Forever. We did a triple threat match with Khan. And there was times in that match where we showed a little teamwork, a little unity.
hmm
And afterwards, I thought to myself, it wouldn't be a bad idea to team up with Mr. Flamingo, Father Flock.
yeah,
And then the Texas Streets having to come back to RCW and rewrite their story. It just doesn't sit well with us. You have two young talent that are trying to make a name for themselves. And of all people, the Texas Streets, of all people, it has to be them. So no,
yeah,
me and Brandon weren't gonna let that slide. We weren't gonna let time get taken away from us anymore. So we took matters into our own hands. We challenged them for the titles in the tables match, and we did what we had to do. And since that day, we've had each other's back. We showed so much unity, and we've only been tagging for what, 2 months, 3 months.
yeah,
We're holding gold everywhere,
yep,
whether it's singles gold, whether it's tag team gold. There's no two better guys to join forces, especially coming out of the hybrid school of wrestling.
yeah. And by the time this is being viewed by people, RCW Mania should have already happened. So, any thoughts on who you're going to successfully defend those titles against? Do you think HPs is going to try to pull double duty and step up, or anybody you think might show up to try and surprise y'all?
You were there when I gave them the offer.
I was.
They they got two sneaky wins over us in singles matches, but we're not singles wrestlers. We are tag team wrestlers. So if they can make it out of the Texas Streets and Diego Rene, which I'm sure they can because they got David Kidd on their side, they're not going to be able to step up. So tomorrow night, RCW Mania, in a building that I used to go to when I was a kid, Good Shepherd. I don't care who it is. It can be any. It can be any tag team the RCW has. It can be anyone from anywhere. But I know that the fucking Brawlers are gonna walk out of that building still with the RCW Tag Team Champions. Because I got wrongs to rewrite in that building. Because the last time I was there, I got my head shaved by Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Now I'm
Yeah,
walking back in that building with gold around me.
yeah,
I'm gonna
I
rewrite.
like it. And I will be there to see those things be done. A couple questions to kind of finish up here. We do actually have one from Tommy. He actually wanted to ask how you decided on the backbreaker kind of being a big part of your arsenal and all the different variations that you use.
Got the gotch style grip and the power. Oh, good lord!
When I was studying wrestling, I would love watching old school PWG matches. And a guy who I really love watching and what he does in the ring is Roderick Strong.
Yeah,
And man, just some of the things that he did in that area, like he doesn't do much anymore.
Right.
And I was like, man, like I feel like this is something that I can. I don't know. It's just something that it's gonna sound weird, but gets me going. Like just feeling someone's back bend over either my shoulder or my knee, and I got so many ways where I can do that move, and there's there's ones you guys haven't even seen yet that that I'm gonna pull out just whenever I feel like it. And Roderick Strong and even Claudio Castagnoli, those two guys,
Yes.
and their styles, and just trying to mesh styles and make things my own. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's other things I can do. I can go
Yeah.
out there and I can fight with the best of them. I can grapple with the best of them. I can have great wrestling matches. I proved it before, but that's just the way I like. I'm methodical. I like to
Yeah.
beat somebody down. I'll start with the back if I have to. I'll do
Yeah.
any body part, but I don't know, something about the back just I like it.
I got you.
I always get back pain sometimes, so
Yeah. And let me say for the record, by no way am I saying that's all you can do. You just have some great variations. One of them being that I've seen in your last two matches is not so much breaking their back on your shoulder, but just kind of tossing them onto whatever happens to be around, like the steel steps or the edge of the ring. I believe Diego Rene took the steel steps at Kickstart My Hard Mission Pro, and I think he just dumped JP Harlow on the edge of the ring at this last one. So yeah, it's great. We love them, and the more variations you can break out, we will enjoy those. And
there's
if Tommy accidentally falls toward the ring, sure his back could do a little stretching or a little popping.
Tommy knows when to get in my way. He'll stand up with his stupid mask and his glasses. He'll just run his mouth and he'll sit back down. But there's so many different types that I haven't even showed anybody yet. There's so many. I analyze every part of a ring or building I'm in. There's so many different ways or places I can throw somebody on, and Diego Rene hasn't been the same since that night. I
Yeah,
like after I threw his back on there, he tried to keep fighting, but he couldn't. And now he changed his ways. Now he's with
he
the
did.
Texas Street. Now he's doing because that's what happens when you wrestle somebody like me. You need to up your game. You need to have some type of backup. And JP Harlow, I didn't even JP Harlow when I was going into that match. I wanted to see what he was about. I gave him maybe one backbreaker, but I wanted to test him and see what his limits are. And he got lucky, because of stupid Joey Hyder. But
Yeah,
next time I see JP Harlow, he's not gonna be walking the same. He's not gonna be acting the same. His antics and all that stuff, he's gonna stop.
yeah. Look forward to that. So to finish up here, where's Casey Blackrose in 5 years? What do you see? I know you ventured out of Texas these last couple months, I believe, to Las Vegas and Georgia. What else do you see on the horizon for yourself?
In the next 5 years, anything's possible with professional wrestling. I've had the opportunities to work with WWE and some of the top companies in wrestling, and if I just keep doing what I'm doing now and keep running with this buzz I have behind my name, who's to say 5 years from now I'm not, on the big screen. I'm not, WrestleMania weekends is pretty much next weekend, this weekend. Who's to say 5 years from now I'm not in a marquee match at WrestleMania or a marquee match at Double or Nothing?
Yeah,
I'm destined to do this and live this life and show the world that I'm not just your typical San Antonio guy. I'm gonna make a name for myself, and I'm gonna continue to show my story and my craft and be one of the best wrestlers that anyone's ever seen. The next 5 years, it's just only up from here. More championships, more marquee matches, more moments of making fun of Tommy.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
being one of the best wrestlers anyone's seen.
Yeah. No, and despite whatever Tommy will say, Countdown City WrestleCast will be behind you and supporting you and shouting your name as you're winning all those titles and main eventing all those shows. So, Casey, we thank you for being here. We've had a great time. I hope people have got to see a little bit about you who may not know about you. Uh, and, guys, if you're out there, Casey's the real deal. Put him on your shows. Go watch him when he's there. because he is going to be breaking through Texas into bigger things. We appreciate it. So, Casey, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. And we're going to end the show the way we end our podcasts, which you can follow along if you'd like. But if not, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've been Big Mike. And always remember, pro wrestling is real. People are fake. Boom. Thank you, guys.